it always makes me suspicious when, you know, you have these apolitical businessmen saying, well, I just want to, you know, put the country back on its feet and restore incentives and so forth. There's something, frankly, I think, sinister about it, unless the guy's prepared to say a great deal more about what his political opinions are. For example, has he ever voted before, and for whom? I'd like to know, because it's much too easy, this talk of, you know, if the country could be run like USA Inc., you know, with a real can-do guy. There's a whiff of fascism to that, I think.
I mean, you can't tell what this looks like, but yeah, you can see the shine there. It's a lacquered cover. Is this new for Newsweek?
No, it's the way they feel about Clinton, I think. It's just completely moist.
I can hear folks saying he likes it here in the United States and he's a socialist.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure you've heard that before.
Absolutely.
If you want socialism, why did you come to the United States?
Well, I think it's a very good question, and I ask it myself. I mean, there's a long tradition that's unfortunately been buried, forgotten, and it's exemplified by, I suppose, the greatest Englishman and the greatest American, certainly the greatest Anglo-American, Thomas Paine, who is in effect, I mean, the moral author of the Declaration of Independence and of important bits of the Constitution, and who wrote The Crisis and wrote Common Sense, and was one of the people who really nerved the colonial leadership to actually separate and declare for the United States, was the first person ever to use the term the United States of America, would have written slavery out of the Constitution if he'd been allowed to. He wasn't allowed to. Would have put the emancipation of women in, again lost that battle. Think how much trouble would have been saved if he'd won. And is the founding radical, really, of the British left. And though they don't know it, of American democracy too. So I wouldn't dream of comparing myself to him, obviously, but I mean to say he's the founder of a tradition that does exist in both countries, of which I'm proud to be a supporter at any rate, and which I try, in stuff I've written in my previous book, I wrote a long defense of Thomas Paine, try to uphold and live by. I think America has a fantastic radical tradition, very admirable one. It goes from Thomas Paine through, well, through the anti-slavery campaigners, particularly John Brown and William Lloyd Garrison, some of whom and their descendants were associated with the nation, incidentally, through Eugene Debs, through Martin Luther King, through Cesar Chavez. And that's my tradition, if I can make such a bold claim. I hope not to disgrace it anyway, even if I don't enhance it. Well, I understood Jerry Brown say that he himself would never consent to take part in or be a partner to or party in an abortion, but that he wouldn't extend that judgment beyond the private sphere, that he was for a woman's right to choose. As to the fundraising point, I think the whole point about him must be, if he's genuine at all, that he is running as someone who used to think one thing and now thinks another. So I don't, when people say, but you used to be a great fundraiser, I don't see where the irony comes in. That's the whole point. The point is he's been there, he's seen what it's like, he knows that what the establishment offers you isn't worth having, it's a bribe not worth taking. That means he can't be bought. Ask yourself if you can say that to any other candidate who's running.
I've just been listening to you, and our English guest there, I won't read his book, I can assure you. The American one, possibly yes. But frankly, it's been the best comedy show that I've ever listened to.
Get on with it.
With regard to comments about Great Britain. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Gentleman doesn't want to complete. Why do you think he would call this?
I'd hate to see a fellow countryman of mine funk a question like that. I mean, to, as it were, try and be rude and then run away. And from Munich, too. Shocking performance. Don't know. I mean, I think we should just spare his blushes and move on.
Who was it? I mean,
I think it's a stray soccer hooligan just trying to fight his way home through the beer halls.
Oh.
And if you ask people why do they think Mother Teresa is so great, they'll always say, well, isn't it true that she spends her time always, you know, helping out the poor of Calcutta? But if they really push them, they don't know anything about her at all. They just take it on faith, as saints always are taken. So I went to Calcutta, actually for another reason. I thought, well, I'm there, I'll go and look her up. And I was rather appalled by what I found. I mean, she showed me around her mission, and she announced that the purpose of the mission was to run a campaign in Calcutta, in Bengal, against abortion and contraception. Now, as it happens, I have my doubts about abortion. I'm very squeamish on the subject, but one thing that Calcutta definitely does not need is a campaign waged by an Albanian Catholic missionary against the limitation of the population. And it rather, to me, spoiled the effect of her charitable work, that she was saying, actually, this is not charity, it's religious propaganda. And I think the Vatican policy on population control is calamitous. So that aroused my curiosity anyway. It had been a bit of a disappointment meeting her there. And I didn't like her manners, actually, particularly either, as she went around among, the poor. Then I found her turning up as the defender of the Duvalier family in Haiti, saying how lovely they were and how gentle and beautiful. Then I found her turning up as Charles Keating's personal best friend in the Lincoln Savings and Loan scandal, taking a lot of money from him for a private plane, giving him blessings and crucifixes in return. Then I found her turning up in Albania, where she's a supporter of a very extreme right nationalist party. And quite a few other such things. And I thought, A, I don't like any of these things, singly or together. And second, when does she ever get time for the poor of Calcutta? She's forever on some scumbag's Learjet going around cashing in on everyone else's belief that she's a saint. And I think this is probably how medieval religion was worked.
But let's say,
as a con, people just, you took the faithful as credulous and you reckoned that they would believe whatever you said. I can't tell you the mail I got about it. I mean, if you touch the idea of sainthood, especially in this country, people feel you've taken something from them personally. And I'm fascinated because, of course, we like to look down on other religious beliefs as being tribal and superstitious. I mean, never dare criticize our own.
This is a picture of the president with two young ladies that are meeting the president for the first time. Mr. Hitchens, your comment on President Clinton?
Oh, come on. I've already made all the flesh-pressing jokes about Clinton that I can think of. If you want, I think there's something completely hollow at the very center of the guy. Needing to be liked doesn't quite cover it. I mean, he has an absolute desperate need to be loved and approved of, which I think is a bad sign in an individual, very bad sign in a politician. I like to go to gatherings, and I like to meet the people firsthand. I always liked that. That's why I used to go to the Oxford Union when I was at the university and debate against actual politicians and try and have dinner with them afterwards, because you very swiftly found out it was very good for your education. They didn't really know very much more than you did, and they weren't that much smarter. It was a good way of demystifying politics. For a lot of people, their first love is what they'll always remember. For me, it's always been the first hate. And I think that hatred, though it provides often rather junky energy, is a terrific way of getting you out of bed in the morning, keeping you going. It can be, if you don't let it get out of hand, it can be canalized into writing. And in this country where people like to be non-judgmental when they can be, which translates as, on the whole, lenient, there are an awful lot of bubble reputations floating around that, one wouldn't be doing one's job if one didn't itch to prick.
This book has a picture, black and white picture on the cover of you, sitting there with a cigarette in your hand. And I can't see where I am, is that alcohol there in front of you?
There are about 9 or 10 empty glasses in front of me. Only 2 or 3 of them are mine, I hope it's clear. And I think only probably about 2 of them are filled or have just been emptied of booze. It's me slumped over a dinner table the night I got married, as a matter of fact, and Annie Leibovitz was there and took a picture of me, which I thought did actually look, for better or worse, pretty much like I do.
Let's take a look at it again. This your idea to put this on the cover? Well,
partly it was because not everyone has the chance to have their picture taken by Annie Leibovitz, and second, because she is a genius photographer and she does capture what I'm like after about 8 o'clock in the evening. And third is that one of the longer articles in the book is a defense of smoking and drinking and of alcohol and nicotine against the current sort of prohibitionist mentality that's sweeping the country. It's a sort of in-your-face reply to the new Puritanism.
That expression on your face.
I'm sitting here now, for example, thinking how much I like these sorts of discussion and thinking, but if I just had a brandy and soda there and an ashtray, how much better a side of me you'd be seeing.
You think that's you?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I have to face it. Like everyone else. I keep mentioning Orwell, but he says I think he says at the age of 40, a man has the face he deserves.